from Rugeley, and this guy called Joe. He's my man with no name. His name's Joe. He's from Burton, nearby town, and well, you can read the profiles on the Chilean players, but Marcelo Jorquera is their board one. He's their captain. Anyway, I will tune out. And Aaron, how are you, buddy?
Hi, I'm doing really good. How are you? I see you're playing, so I guess.
Yeah, sadly I am. So I'm going to mute myself. And if you want a long game, look at board one. But if obviously you want to see all the other ones quickly before they end, i.e. mine. All right, cheerio.
Hey, Aaron, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just making sure that you pop up on screen because it was being a bit difficult. So here we go. What? No, don't do that.
All right. Seems like the games have just started as we speak.
As we speak, I will pop up. I'll put on board 1 and 2 and 3 and do that. In the meantime, I'm just going to fix the Zoom call because it's being very difficult.
Yeah, I don't see your camera. I see myself. I don't see you.
You won't see me. I'm special. I only need to see you. So yeah, I have you on stream as always. And here we go, Gunslinger versus Jackie Reno, and that's obviously Jonathan Blackburn, one of the commentators from the League 2020 final. Lovely gentleman, actually had a great time commentating with him. And we've got a Sicilian Dragon. Am I right, Aaron? You're the FM, so you can lead us the way with opening names today.
Yeah, it's a dragon, but it started as a French, and then it's transformed into a King's India attack, and then now a closed Sicilian. It's kind of interesting. It's not really a dragon, right? Because in the dragon, D4 is played earlier, so this is a closed Sicilian, but I guess with the dragon formation for black. It seems like black is going for E5 earlier, so he goes E6 and then E5. I don't know how good this is supposed to be. I don't play any of these positions, but whenever I get into this sort of setup, I mean, I'll usually not play E5 because it blocks the bishop. At least I won't play it that early. But I mean, it's fine. Black will just play 97, bishop e6, and then castles, and then it should be good to go. And then hopefully at some point you can play f5 as well.
No, 100%. And look, I'm not a fan of this e5 move because you got a bishop on g7 and you're blocking that line. So
yep.
Hey Scuzo, 1800 on over the board or 1800 on chess.com. If it's over the board, I'll let Aaron answer that question. Is it hard to reach 1800? So let's do the easy one. Let's do the easy one, right? Over the board, 1800. Is it hard to get there?
Which rating? Which FIDE rating?
Yeah, let's do FIDE rating because that's the internationally recognized one. So 1800. Is it hard?
Is it hard? No. I guess you can get there with if you put in the effort and you improve a lot over about 5 years, you can make it for sure. But you're not going to get there. You're not going to get there in like 1 year for sure. If you just started, there's a lot to learn. I guess if you're really fast, you could do it in 3 years.
What? Depends. No. I disagree. Wait, hang on. 1800 in 3. No, Aaron. No. It all depends on how much time you're going to put into your chess. Let's start there, isn't it? Like if you put in
of course. You need to put a lot of time.
If you put 2-3 hours a week, for example, you could get to about 1600 in a year, right? 1600 FIDE in a year if you put 2-3 hours a week, right?
A week? Yeah. 2 hours a week? That's not enough. That's not enough to get to 1600 from nothing, right? This is from total beginner, right?
Yeah, from total beginner, 1600.
I don't think that's possible.
You don't think it's possible?
No, that's not enough time.
What?
There's just so much to learn in chess. You have to learn openings, endgames, tactics. With only 3 hours a week, 3 times 52 is 150 hours. Only 150 hours? No, there's not enough time.
Okay, so let me explain where my background's coming with this before we get crazy into these games. Is that do you know that chess in South Africa, the average student takes 1 hour a week?
Well, yeah, but that's lessons, right? But then you always need to do a lot of studying outside.
But remember, the students only do that 1 hour. They don't do more than that 1 hour. Even if you give them homework, they don't do more than that 1 hour. They do that 1 hour a week. I'm saying 3 hours a week of training with a coach, you can get to 1600.
Oh, training. Yes, but then you obviously need to factor in how much time outside you spend studying. Do you say they
Yes.
spend only 1 hour studying?
No, but they don't spend that much time outside of the study. I'm saying.
That's not going to work, in my opinion. It doesn't work. For me, when I just started chess, I only had one lesson 1 hour a week, but I would spend many, many hours just reading books. I mean, back then we didn't really have advanced software. There was no chess.com. So
Yeah.
I just bought books and then read them for many, many hours a week, I guess, just because, so I only had 1 hour of lesson a week, and my coach would just come over and do an hour. But then the rest of the time was just me reading books by myself. That's how I learned a lot. 3 hours a week, no, that's not going to cut it.
No, I agree. I agree with you that 3 hours a week is too minimum. But I think if your goal is only to get to 1800, you can do it 3 hours a week. As long as it's an intensive 3 hours. If you're literally learning,
You're focused on, in a few years, 1800 for sure, 3 hours a week. By the way, we need to look at Peter's game because he may have blundered a piece right off the bat. I'm not so sure.
Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, Peter's game.
He might be able to pin. So bishop g5. So it seems like he might be able to pin and get away.
Yeah, but the problem is even when you check.
No, I don't think so. I think he just lost it. I think he's just losing a piece. There's the bishop as well.
The marching pawn, right? The marching pawn.
Yeah, I mean, Peter went bishop d3. He actually walked willingly into the fork by playing bishop d3, and then now it's all over. And it's an entire piece because there's a rook there, so it's all over.
Scusa, with regards to consider that we live in an era of free information and power analyzing tool, there's your first problem. If you're going to go down the line of using analyzing tools to improve your chess without doing the groundwork, you're not going to get to 1800. You're not, because you're going to try and play like an engine, and chess isn't played like engines. You need intuition. You need to know strategies. You need to know techniques. And yes, engines can show you some of them, but when an engine tells you you must push the pawn to d5, you might have no reason why you need to do that. An
engine doesn't tell you why you need to make that move.
100%.
It just tells you what to play.
Just what to play, exactly.
And sometimes the engine tells you what to play, and it's very obvious. The reason's obvious. Maybe it's a tactic, maybe it's something. But some other times the engine tells you a move, but the reason could be hidden behind many moves of calculation, which you'll never see. The engine sees it, but the engine's not going to tell you.
Well, exactly. And I must admit,
but then you might end up focusing on the wrong things in that way, and that's where a good coach comes in. So a good coach will not use an engine. A good coach will tell you what you need to be thinking about, and they'll recommend moves to you that may not be the best according to the engine, but they're the best according to what you need to be focusing on according to your level, basically. So that's where a coach comes in.
100%. Did you know, funny enough, Aaron, I've never been coached on a one-to-one basis. Yep.
Okay.
Peter has conceded that game already. So 1-0 to Chile.
All over already.
Let's go look at board 3. Manit, yeah. That one. The man with no name is easier to go with.
So white's a pawn up. So it seems like it was kind of sacrificed, I guess, on d5. I don't think it was given away for free. But black might have some play here. I don't know about g6 though. This move seems a bit weird. I guess he wants bishop f5, but is it really worth the weakening like g6? It feels g6 feels like a very badly weakening move. I don't think it's worth it.
I thought
like,
bishop,
for example, here, rook e5.
I thought bishop e6 here would have been nicer than g6.
Yeah, just bishop e6, keep the rook back, and then play depending where the rook goes, then you can maybe go b5 and then try to attack, I guess. But g6, okay, rook e1. So white is not afraid to sacrifice. He's going to take an f5 with the rook. I still wouldn't do this. I mean, I like material, but it looks nice, of course. White's position looks nice, but you're giving up the exchange. You better get something for it. So he's going to sack. But then queen e4 check. You're trading off queens. No, this is really bad from white. Really, really bad. You just lost. Well, you just gave up the exchange, and then now black can trade off the queens. There's no attack. The whole point is that white gets an attack, but after queen e4, there's no attack at all.
In all fairness, James, it's taken you a year to improve where you are today. And when I say taken a year, I'm being polite. I think it's taken you less. I think it's taken you 6 months to get where you are. If I remember from the first time that you've been on stream playing your games to where you are now, you're a lot stronger than what you were 6 months ago. So, but again, to reach goals, guys, and here's the thing, it depends on your rating, right? It really depends on your rating. Depending on your rating will depend on how quickly you can get to your next goal. Some people can reach goals very, very quickly because they're talented, they've got the knowledge and all the rest of it. But it all depends on what you're studying and how you're studying it. And, you know, and Aaron, you can agree with me, there are a ton of coaches out there. Some good, some not so good, and some with titles and some with not titles. And when I say titles, yes, I'm obviously talking about player titles, but you should also be looking for coaches that have coaching titles because they specialize as coaching. That makes a difference.
What's a coaching title? I've never heard of it, actually.
What? You've never heard of a coaching title?
No.
So
is it a FIDE thing?
Yeah, it's a FIDE thing. FIDE. I'm a national instructor, so I've got an NI title. You get an FI title, which is a FIDE instructor. Yeah, you can check it out on chess on FIDE. It's there. In fact, you can go look at my profile. You will find under my name, it will show you that I have a instructor's and title. I have a coaching title, and a lot of coaches can get it. I mean, a lot of players can get it. Huh?
You have to pass it.
Yes, I had to pass a test.
So you take a test and then you just
you take a test. They test your knowledge. They also they check that fundamentals. They look at your playing strength. They look at your coaching experience of what you've coached over the last whatever. I mean, I've got 20 years coaching experience. I have probably 35 years playing experience. But they look at all that information and then there's a grading system. Obviously, there's a grading system.
Yep.
And it's good. It's great. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's not, like you said, you weren't aware of it. It's not well known, and I think FIDE needs to make it more well known, right? And one of the things we do as Chess Heroes is we make it well known. Because I might not have a playing title, but I definitely have a coaching title, and I'm proud of it, to be honest. Let's put it that way. What on earth is going on in this game, Aaron? I'm lost.
Board 3? Are you talking about board 3?
Yeah.
It's a fiesta. I don't even know what they're going for. First of all, I mean, White gets the extra pawn and then decides that he would sacrifice the exchange like this and then allow the trade of queens, which is really bad. And now Black is greeted for the f2 pawn when he should have played something like rook a8 to actually activate his rooks before greeting for the pawn, which has now resulted in some dangerous sort of activity for White now with the bishop coming into f7. Now I feel like White is fine, but I don't know here. It's hard to say. So he goes back. He's threatening mate in 1, but now Black can just go back knight f6, which is the only move to prevent mate in 1, by the way. So he has to play knight f6.
Yeah, knight f6 is expected to be played, but it's such a crazy game.
This is really weird, but yeah, it's weird. I would say it's really disappointing to see that White just allowed this exchange of queens.
Hey, Jonathan got a draw on board 1.
Drawn already? Okay, well, we got to go back, I guess. Let me see what happens. This was just drawn without any play, right?
This is like GM level draws here, Aaron. Board takes f5, let's draw.
This is much better for White, right? So who's the stronger player? White's the stronger player. Why did he agree for a draw? I don't know. This is much better for White already, I think. There has to be material gain somewhere here. All of these pawns look really loose.
It is entertaining that we're getting a GM draw on board 1. Let's put it that way. Scuso,
I think something's wrong because you see how White's not making any moves?
No,
maybe there's something wrong with their connection and they're agreeing to just call off the match or something, because I mean White didn't make any moves until just now. Maybe there's something wrong with the internet.
What?
I don't know.
Oh, the second.
Well, because he spent a minute on the move, which is implying that he might have internet connection issues, which may explain the quick draw. But that's the best I got for that.
Okay, so there might be some issue here. Okay. Well, I mean, that's again. Okay. I'm not surprised by Jonathan offering and accepting a draw. The way he came across to me is he's that kind of sporting player, so that doesn't surprise me. So how far can you, on average, count forward with your moves? Aaron, you can shoot me when I say this answer. My answer is I only think one move ahead. Right?
No, that sounds fine. No, that's completely fine. When students ask me how many moves you should think ahead, of course the correct answer is it depends on the nature of the position.
Yes,
right?
Obviously
If
the nature of the position.
If the position doesn't require you to calculate, then you're wasting time calculating, right?
100%.
So it really depends on the nature of the position.
Look, if it's a tactical position, I could probably go, depending on the position and depending how tactical it is, I can go quite deep in because I trust my tactics, I trust my calculation. When it becomes a strategical game, I generally don't try and look at moves at that point. I start looking at pawn structures, I start looking at outposts, I start looking at weaknesses in my opponent's position. Look, I get those ideas wrong. And that's what makes us chess players, and that's what makes me a coach as well. I had no problem playing in a position, getting it wrong, and going back and looking at it and going, oh, okay, I should have done this, you know. The real answer is it's not about how far you calculate, it's how accurate you calculate. How accurate you calculate the position, and every position is different. And the rule of thumb is never look more than one move ahead, because the position can change on a dime. So when people ask me the question, I always say one. I don't know, what's your answer, Aaron? How far do you think ahead, bud?
between 1 and 20. I mean, absolutely depends on the position.
It does.
For example, in this board 3 position right now, you better be calculating at least 5-6 moves ahead, because if you don't, your king might get checkmated if you're black, and if you're white, then you may end up with a position where you're just exchanged down, right? So you better calculate until the end. And the end of the position is where you can see a very clear, well, basically when the smoke clears is the end of the position. You need to calculate until the smoke clears for you.
100%.
So
I mean, I'm already
yeah.
looking at, for example, right, the bishop checks. I'm looking at, okay, if he plays king here, you've got knight check, king here, then you've got rook here. But these are quick fire thoughts. These are not analysis, right? These are quick fire thoughts that you're looking at. The king's going to run to here, h, bishop check. It gets messy. The position starts to get messy. So h6, you're allowing the knight to come in. If you go g5, you're allowing the rook to come in. If you go to h5, then maybe again you might look at sacking the pawn, you know, to get the king into the area that he wants. It's not this. There we go, h5. But now you're looking at, is g4 a threat, right? Is g4 a threat? Is this problematic? Are there mating positions here for white? The answer is yes. You just got to calculate.
Rook g7's a good move. Rook g7 is a very good move. Now I think there are mating threats, because you got bishop e2, then you got g3. Maybe then, for example, g3, bishop g2. Oh, the king runs to h6. Yeah, so g3 is a mating threat basically, because bishop e2, king h6, and knight f5 is checkmate, right? So from here, as white, you need to calculate until checkmate basically, if possible. And I think here black just gave checkmate, right? Bishop e2.
Bishop e2, yeah, must be played.
Let's stay here until the end of the game. Because
this is gonna. I think there's a mate here, because if he plays bishop e2 and he plays knight to g5, I would play rook takes g5, threatening. If he plays rook takes knight, rook d4, check, winning the rook. So there, bishop d2 is played. If the king goes to h6, you've got knight f5 and it's mate. If he goes to h4, you've got knight f5, it's mate. He has to play rook knight g4, and I think this is where you play rook takes g4.
As a human, I would play rook takes g4, I think. Yeah, I'm just looking at rook f1.
Holy moly, Peter, that was quick, bruh. That was shockingly quick.
That's the fastest 2-0 ever.
Yeah, white is looking very, very good here.
Yeah, so he does go bishop b2, and I think it's time to resign for black here.
Because the
Knight
only
g4.
we both agreed the only move here is knight g4, and rook takes g4 needs to be played.
Yes, and then I go rook f1. What do you do?
Ooh, rook f1 is nasty, but I don't have to take you. I just play king to c.
King
Oh
c2.
yeah. I see what you're saying. Oh yeah, you see.
But then I take the knight.
Oh, you're being
Right?
tricky
No, no.
here. You can't take the knight because I've got rook check.
You still have rook d4.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Okay,
you got
so I go
you
rook
got
f2.
you got f2.
Yep.
Oof.
Now you have no discovered checks because your bishop's under attack.
Yeah.
So getting tricky. And then if you take on f1 with your rook, then I take on g4, and then if your knight moves, then you're getting forked on the back rank. So
What
yes, I think-
about this? If you play rook takes rook f1, bishop takes f1, king
Yeah.
takes rook, bishop check, and I'll play a bishop and knight versus your rook.
Yeah, then it wins for sure. Then it wins. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely winning in one way or another, but you have to figure it out as white. So you don't want to enter this, and then all of a sudden your opponent plays rook f1, and you get a hard attack because you realize that you might be losing one of your pieces.
No, 100%. I
You have to
completely
figure it
agree.
out. Yeah.
I completely and utterly agree.
So this is the kind of position where you would need to see a few moves ahead. So here you would need to see 3 moves ahead. You need to see rook g4 check, rook g4, rook f1, bishop f1, take, and then bishop e2 check, and then you can stop.
But again, even though you're looking at all those moves, you're only looking at one move to make your decision, right? Because you're looking at the options of what happens when you play the one move.
Oh, knight f7. What is that? I mean, it's probably winning for sure. There's just a really more interesting, ambitious way to do it. Now every piece is attacked. Rook's attacked, the knight's attacked, and the knight's also gone out of the way. There's probably a checkmate threat. Rook g5 is probably a mate threat somewhere.
There is.
Maybe not.
No, the mate is simple. Rook there. Oh, it's not as simple
The
as
king
it
gets
looks.
out, but I think this is actually the best move. This looks really strong, and it should be enough to resign after that.
Oof.
Oh, what happened in the? It seems like there's a board that's not moving.
Bishop takes. Oh yeah, we'll go look. That was the board
So
one.
board 4 was finished, but then the next game started, and one of the players is not playing. One of the players is not moving. Do you know why?
Not sure. I'm gonna go check it out. Yeah, it's board one. Board one.
Not board 1, board 4, right?
There's a connection issue. It's a connection issue. It's a connection issue on board 4.
Okay. So who's disconnected? So White.
White.
He has the red bar. So he won the first game, even though he was trolling, because he went. We didn't actually see for the first game, but if you go there, he went d4 knight f6, then c4 knight g8.
And
so
there was
just trolling.
I got to share. There was a lovely little pawn mate with g3, played by the IM. Well done. So that is the first game that Manito.
Nice.
Paloma wins with that, but we knew there was a mate there, right? We could sniff it, we sensed it, right?
So knight to the pawn, yeah.
So which game are we? Let's go to board 1. Let's have a look at board 1.
The gunslinger, right?
The gunslinger, right? Let's have a look here.
We got a king's Indian, and wait, what happened here? He lost the piece? No, that's not losing a piece, is it? Why did he go knight b5? So go to move 13. He just gave the knight for free. I don't know what's going on in this game. I guess he wanted some counterplay because knight c7, right? That makes sense.
Knight c7.
Really?
He picks up the rook.
It doesn't. It picks up just the exchange.
How?
Because knight c7, and then black would get the knight back. What's the A in giving up the rook, giving up 2 pieces for rook somehow? Why would you do this to yourself? 2 pieces are way stronger than the rook.
I agree.
He could have just retreated. So he didn't have to go for this. He could just, on move 13, you could just put the knight back to b3, and then he would have just an extra pawn. I mean, black would have compensation, but, extra pawn. Instead of giving up the exchange. f4? Why is he not going knight c7? This doesn't make any sense. What is going on? The e4 pawn's also hanging.
I don't know what's happening here. I'm very confused on what's going on here.
Today's match is a bit of a fiesta. We have multiple disconnects, and then unfortunately Peter going down. And then here f4, that almost looks like a mouse slip to me because the pawn on e4 is hanging, and white's a piece down. You can't just play f4.
Well, you just did.
The pawn's hanging though on e4. Does he not see that? And why would you play f4, not knight c7? There is no universe where knight c7 is not the best move.
Maybe.
Okay, so it seems like this game is over now.
Yeah, the disconnection game is over. Amikins picked up the point for Abbots Bromley. You know, and as they say, a point is a point is a point, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter how you get them. Unlucky to his opponents. But yeah, I don't understand. I'm missing something here. You can't take the e-pawn. Don't you lose your rook if you take the e-pawn?
Like how? Rook takes e4?
Bishop e5.
Bishop e5?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can take on e5 if I want to.
Yeah, I know. I don't. I'm trying to figure out. Like, I'm really genuinely trying to look at what's going on here, and I don't.
Or I don't want to take on e5. I can just play queen h4 and go for checkmate, knight g3, and winning more material, by the way. On f1, e2. What's going on this game? He doesn't even take. He doesn't even take the free pawn. Okay, I mean at least this threatens something. Okay, at least this has a threat.
Well, that's the end of
that.
So
he goes here. He takes. He instantly takes back with the pawn, not even considering to take back with the queen. Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, knight c7 has to be played.
Has to be played.
Now he's right. He stalled one move with f4, really strange. But now there's no more excuses with knight c7, right?
Well, knight c7 is going to get met by bishop g4.
Yeah, of course. So bishop g4, the queen moves, and it's still forked. So white will get back one of the rooks, but it's going to be two pieces for the rook and a couple pawns, two pawns, and black's pawns are really weird as well on the king side. So I actually think bishop g4 is not the best move because the bishop isn't doing too much on g4. I think he should actually go bishop. I don't know. I guess the only other square is okay. So it goes there's bishop g4. I was thinking maybe bishop d7 to c6. This looks like a nice diagonal, but it might run into some tactics like bishop takes f8. I'm not so sure. So it goes bishop g4. That's fine. And then the queen goes somewhere, and white will grab one of those rooks.
I really don't know what's going on. I am confuzzled, is the words here, Aaron. I am very confuzzled.
It's a very strange match, honestly.
Mind you, it's the theme of the match, isn't it? Everything has been strange about it. We've had some strange questions. We've had some strange moves. We've got a strange position. Bishop g4 played. At least we can predict that. But now, again, where does white play his queen? Like, honestly, where does he play his queen?
I would say any square on the d file looks okay. Queen d3 looks okay.
Yeah, you gotta stay on the d file because of the bishop on d3, right?
Well, no, I just want to be on the d file because it's in the center and it defends the pawn. That's all. So queen d3. I would go queen d3.
Okay.
And
not queen d2 because you don't want him to play bishop takes b2.
I mean, bishop b2 doesn't do anything because you just rook b1 and rook b7. You're just helping white in that situation.
Why would you want to trade queens?
Goes queen e1. Okay. I mean, black does have some potential future threats, but I don't agree with trading queens either. So I assume black will oblige for this. There's no reason not to. He'll move the rook a d8, or I'll go something like that, rook a d8. Oh, but now he has to be careful because he can actually play rook e d8, and then if take on a8, then I take the bishop, not the knight, right? Now he has to be careful.
But you can play bishop takes knight.
Bishop takes knight, but then you gave up the bishop. The bishop is really valuable here. You really need that bishop.
So what?
Then that'll be 2 bishops against the rook, and then bishop d7. I like this move. Good. So go back to c6. Good. So rook takes a8. And I like black here. I always like the piece.
Black it's got an extra piece. I also would like him if he's got the extra piece.
I mean, white has a couple pawns, and materially, it's actually better for white. But I like black here. I think these pieces can court, especially after this terrible move e5. Now all the light squares are gone. So now he can play things like bishop f5, knight e6, and then the entire pawn mass just got blockaded.
Apparently, even the eval doesn't know what's going on. I don't like this block. I would have played f5. So
yeah, obviously you need to keep your pawns on sides.
I got another question for you. So the question is, what do you think about playing the same opening in a way of improving quicker? Well, yes, definitely. I think that playing multiple openings is a problem because that means you've got to spend a lot of time in knowing multiple openings. But remember, when you're playing an opening, your opponent doesn't have to go down the lines you know. So you're still going to learn that opening relatively well. I think every single player has one opening that they know extremely well, whether they play for black or white, and then they've got about a repertoire of other openings that they kind of know. They kind of know what's going on. But when you first start out, it's not so much the opening that you need to know, but more about opening principles. What do you have to say about that, Aaron?
Depends on your level. I would say for sure when you start out 100% opening principles are everything. And then once you get to know that, then you want to stick to one opening. I always tell my students to stick to one opening for sure. Because if you're doing 2 openings, when I say 2 openings or one opening, I mean, you have to be prepared for obviously everything that your opponent throws at you. But when you arrive at a position, you can only have one move, basically. So you only want to learn one move for every position that shows up. Because if you start learning multiple moves for the same position, then you're just thinning out your own repertoire, right? You're just doing double the work and you're accomplishing the same thing, right? So you want to, because, I mean, when you study chess, time is limited. So you need to make the most of your time. You don't want to spend time learning the same thing or different things for the same purpose, right? Multiple times. At least when you're starting out, it's not a good idea.
100%. Completely agree.
And if you look at my basically my entire match history, and you do one of those opening trees, you'll see it's the most consistent you'll ever see out of any player at chess.com. I play almost exactly the same thing every single time. And I encourage everyone, at least when you're learning, to do exactly the same thing.
I can't say the same. I can't say this, but okay, I can't say the same because I also, because I do training on certain openings as well. I play those openings for what do you call it? To get to understand positions, to look at what people will play against the students. Because remember, when you're coaching students, your students are not all playing the same opening, right? Some of them are playing Queen's Gambit, some of them are playing the Scotch, some of them are playing the Italian, some of them are playing Roy Lopez. Now, as a coach, you've got to diversify. You've got to know the ideas in those openings. You've got to be able to bring it across to your players. So I can say from my repertoire, I have one opening that is my pet favorite, and I love it to bits. But I do play a lot of different ones, but more for research value than for myself. Does that make sense?
Of course. Obviously, when you're a coach, you're not just looking after yourself anymore. You're looking after your students. So that completely changes things. But we're saying as a player, when you're starting out, you want to learn one opening. And
yeah.
That should be for sure.
100%.
So going back to this gunslinger game, a5, I like this move. Now breaking through, he can't take an a5 because the knight takes c5, the bishop is pinned, and white's entire queenside is falling apart. So I'm going to say that I'm actually not going to say too much. I think black is going to win this game eventually. It's so easy for a human to play with the more pieces. For example, there are all kinds of ideas like bishop h6 and then h4. Look how terrifying it is once the bishops get into the game. If the bishop ever lands on f4, I think the game's over. The white king just looks like it's going to be checkmated.
I'm going to throw a spanner into your analysis. Okay.
All right.
And this is my strategical play, my brain now coming into play. Not my tactical play, strategical. You're a piece up, right? You agree with this? Technically, you're a piece up.
Yeah.
If I was able to get all your pawns and I traded all my pieces, it's a draw.
Yeah, but you'll never get all the pawns.
Well, I don't know. There's only 3 left.
I only need 1.
I know you only need 1, but I'm telling you, there's only 3 left.
You'll never take the F7 pawn. This game will end when the F7 pawn is still standing. I guarantee you.
All right. Well, I mean, this is the beauty thing about this, right? The game. So this is what I'm thinking from Jonathan's side is he's looking at picking up those pawns, and I think we both can agree that the pawns are going to be the targets. At the same time, he's going to try and create pressure with those 2 passed pawns on the queen side, if he can get it right. Look at the rook's movement. They're going onto the b file. They're starting to move in that direction. Black's squared bishop can't get into the game at the moment. It's going to have to play a move like bishop f8 at some point to remove the bishop on d6.
No, no, he's not going to play bishop f8. He'll play bishop h6 and h4, and then get into the game from f4.
No, 100%. But I'm saying is that the game strategy for white is simple.
Yeah, he needs to get rid of the pawns, but he's never getting rid of the pawns. That's for sure. The F7 pawn will just never be attacked. There's no way to get rid of the pawns, and you can never break through on the queen side because anytime that what black feels like, it, you just go rook a8, rook a6, and you can't actually push your pawns. It's obviously not that simple. So he does go for this bishop h6, h4 idea. It's a bit weird because the king has made it to h2 now, which means that now white can actually ignore this and just play a5, for example. And then after takes the, okay, so he goes f5. Take. All right, it's getting a bit messy now. Now the knight has to retreat somewhere or go to g5.
So you're saying what's about that f pawn?
I still think it's not going to. I still think it's going to survive. I actually think there's no way for this f pawn to die.
I could kill that f pawn by playing e6 right now. I could kill that.
Sure, but he's not going to go. He's just not going to go for it.
I know this. I'm just saying it can die.
Yeah, but he won't go for it. It's still going to be alive at the end of the game. Bishop d7.
Oh! Oh! Rook takes b7. Come on.
You can't give up that pawn, can you? Maybe you can because knight takes f5.
Oh! Can I please play e6 now?
I mean, he's inviting e6. He's basically saying he can play e6.
E6. Swap. Take the b7. All your pawns are gone. All your pawns are gone, and now we're getting into that position.
He's really inviting e6. But I still think he's going to take on f7. Why would you play e6 here? I think white's going to try and win this game now. So he takes, okay. King, I don't know where this king is going. Back to h2, okay, that's fine. And then now the bishop's got to go, yep. But then now the pawns are rolling. He gave up the b7 pawn. The f7 pawn's still going to be alive, that's for sure. I'll never be wrong about that.
Okay, but let's be honest.
Okay, so that is principle. It's the correct decision. When you're playing rook against minor pieces, and you have the rook, whether it's rook against 1 minor piece or 2, you always want to trade the rooks because it means that now you have the only rook.
Can you play c6 here now?
C6. I don't see why not. And aren't the pawns just feel like they're marching? The king has to get over there, so the bishop has to go over here, and the king has to get over as fast as possible. Can the king make it? So c6. So king f8, c7, king e7. I mean, the king gets there, but then the other pawn starts rolling, right? a5. Oh, so he just goes a5. He doesn't even care about that pawn.
Well, that's because the bishop on d6 can't move. So maybe a6, a7. Here we go.
He has to give up the bishop for the pawn. Yeah. So he gives up the bishop. Oh, this position is gonna last forever. Actually, if black is tenacious, he can defend this for a really long time.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. But
opposite color bishop.
But hats off to white because I told you he was after those pawns. I think e6 was probably the better move, though. I don't think he should have taken that pawn just yet. e6 was definitely the better option.
Okay.
You know what we'll do? When the game's finished, we'll go look at the engine and see what the engine says. How's that?
I don't think it'll say e6.
You don't think it'll say e6? Okay. All right.
Why would you give up the pawn? Why would you give up the pawn for no reason?
No, you're swapping the pawn to get rid of the f pawn, and then you've got your 2 pawns on the queen side.
Yeah, but that doesn't. But white's trying to win. White's not trying to draw. He wants the pawn.
Oof.
Wait, is the e5 pawn lost? No, the e5 pawn is lost.
I
The e5 pawn is lost.
think.
No, the e5 pawn is lost. 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 No, the e5 pawn Okay, then it's a draw. The F pawn will survive, and it will be the only pawn that survives in this entire game. Right. Unless he goes rook takes f7 and then offers a draw.
Please play rook takes f7. Is this the
Or you
last
can just
game?
play rook e1 and blunder. You can play rook e1 and blunder a fork on f3. That works as well.
There's still one more game, but would you play rook takes f7 yet, knowing that to try and fight this? No, they agreed to a draw.
Yeah. So the pawn survives, like I said, the only pawn.
But I mean, I did point out that this could lead to a draw, even with the this is the last match, not the last game. But okay, shall we quickly have a look at that the eval and what it says about e6 there?
There's no way e6 is correct. I mean, white is trying to win the game, right? e6 just gives the pawn for free. So e6, he just takes it.
Oh my gosh!
Why would you play e6?
So rook takes b7 is correct. Knight takes f5, king h2. Okay, bishop there. Oh, so here instead of the rook, he should have pushed the pawns, like we also said. So, but okay, fair enough. Okay, look, I think, like I would have, me personally, I would have played this knowing the pressure that I was under the whole game, and trading and following the idea that I had about swapping off the pawns. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, it might not be the right engine move, like you pointed out. Well done. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. But from a human aspect, if your goal was to get rid of all those pawns, then e6 is the logical option.
Well, it was the goal, but then it wasn't anymore. So my goal was to give up the pawns when white was worse, which he was a few moves ago. But
Yeah.
black made some slightly inaccurate moves, and then white was no longer trying to draw the game; he was trying to win the game.
Yeah.
So then I'm not trying to get rid of the pawns.
So then in that case, it's one of those typical scenarios where you start off with a plan, and then your plan changes because the position changes in front. And Chile
in this case, it's your plan improving because
yeah.
Your opponent messed up. Also,
Yeah.
I would continue playing this. If I was white, I would play this position out after move 45 when they agreed for the draw, because I think when they're